graduate with MBAs. We are very far behind, so we need to increase that talent base specifically. But also in terms of general talent, we also have to increase the level of education for Ontario students. Third lesson was we should establish a new social safety net by making early childhood development a high priority, investing in skills development for recent immigrants, and wage insurance for longer tenure workers. Now this tries to capture three issues with respect to building the next economy, so making sure that every new child coming into the system has a very solid educational background. We have a wealth of talent in the immigrants that we bring to Ontario. We are such a diverse, multicultural jurisdiction, and if we can't tap into those skills and that intelligence, that is a lost area of productivity. And lastly, given that so much of the we're losing a great deal of other sectors, for example, manufacturing. If we allow them to just go into the unemployment lines, then that's again loss of skills, and they're not contributing to the prosperity of Ontario. Lastly, building a province-wide geographic advantage. There is a great mega region that stretches from Kitchener-Waterloo to the west, down through Buffalo and Rochester in the United States, and over to Ottawa and eastward towards Montreal. We can take advantage of this mega region by making it as strong as it can be and investing in connectivity. Now there are different ways that you can interpret connectivity through mass infrastructure like high-speed rail, or events such as this one, where we're sharing knowledge and using multi-ministry collaborative efforts and distributing it to academic institutions. So that was the basis of the report, and with that I'd like to move on to the Ministry of Research and Innovation.
All right. So my name is Galen Kennedy. I'm with the Ministry of Research and Innovation. My primary role there is to work on digital media and ICT policy. So that's how I sort of came to speak at a creative economy conference. So I think we bring a pretty interesting perspective, research and innovation, as though we're not necessarily as much about rural development, but enabling an environment where innovation and economic development can happen in any region in Ontario. And I think the presentation fits in really nicely behind Adriana's from MEDT, and especially the Creative Age report, because many of the recommendations they make are actually the types of activities that we at MRI work towards pretty much every day. It's in our mandate to sort of promote this agenda. So the idea of harnessing the creative potential of Ontarians, the broadening of the talent base, the building a province-wide geographic, essentially based around the clusters of excellence, and as well as having a social consciousness or being socially motivated in our actions are all things that we work towards. So this presentation will primarily focus on two key areas. One, how MRI works, so to give you a bit of a brief understanding of who we are and how we support innovation, and how we support the creative economy. So to do that, I think it's interesting to start with some definitions, some terms. And the way the Creative Age report defines creativity is actually closely linked to how we would define innovation. So really, when you boil it down, it's the application of knowledge to a problem. And that sort of act is the creativity, which is very similar to how we would define innovation. And we define innovation in the innovation agenda, or Ontario's innovation agenda, as an openness on the part of people to new ways of thinking and doing that bring about improvements, whether to an individual business, an industry, a government, the economy, or society as a whole. And what we're really saying is that innovation is horizontal. Oh, geez. I get caught up. There we go. So we're saying that innovation is horizontal. It's agnostic. It doesn't know any sector. It can exist anywhere. It's in the arts, and it's in the science, and it's in business. And now we look at research and innovation. So really, what is research? And usually when we talk to stakeholders, this is sometimes maybe a more difficult conversation to have, but seeing as we're at Queen's, this might be pretty simple concept because you're probably all doing it on a daily basis. But it's the movement from an idea to a new knowledge. So it's the desire to find out something, then do that defensible research against it to find a position. And I guess the innovative spot for us as a ministry, or why we're unique, is supporting the commercialization. So it's taking that new knowledge and moving it to a new product, and then moving that product to a marketplace. And all this happens inside an innovation system. And again, I'll do something technical, then we'll sort of break it out with a graphic sort of talk about this innovation ecosystem. But it's basically the flow of the technology and information between and amongst a system of interrelated people, enterprises, and institutions. And this sort of key is this is the process with which you get the tangible results of information or innovation, get an economic return from it. So what we're talking about here is how does a jurisdiction get successful at being innovative? So the example we're going to use here is the Ontario system, or the Ontario innovation ecosystem. And I'm in no way suggesting that we have this down pat, but this is essentially how we sort of conceptualize Ontario. Now, each of these elements could be working at a higher capacity, and some of these elements are working above capacity. In a perfect world, they're all operating at full capacity, and we're the greatest jurisdiction in the world. But to understand it, there's basically we envision as being there's sort of three actors sitting at the table. There's the business community, there's the research community, and there's the government. And when these all work together, there's this sort of torrent of activity and this convalescence. It all comes together to be world-class technologies and products and services that drive us into this knowledge economy, and we're wonderfully successful and all very wealthy. But those aren't really enough. There are these other elemental things outside of this ecosystem that reinforce it and stimulate it. So you need to have a strong access to capital to move these innovations to market. You need to have the strong clusters and networks to support the transfer and the research development. You need to have a government that understands and internalizes innovation and promotes an innovation culture in all aspects of that. Government strategy has to be focused. We can't be winners on everything, and when we have to make decisions, we need to be concise about them. Also speaking towards the education system for a knowledge-based economy. So it's not enough to start educating children or promoting science and math literacy later on in life or once they're in high school. It really has to start from almost from the cradle. So from that grade 1 on, you have to promote the skills and the education and the knowledge that out there are great jobs in maths and science as well as in finance. Having globally significant research, as well as having a competitive business climate. So having all of these actors and elements working together is how we feel the innovation ecosystem exists in Ontario. And it's important to note that really is just the Ontario case. Each innovation ecosystem is different. When you look at a Silicon Valley, if you look at a Massachusetts, each ecosystem, if you will, has its own elements that make it successful. So what are the key elements in Ontario's innovation ecosystem that really set it apart? Well, Ontario has some of the best talent going. We've got a tremendously educated workforce that compares with any international jurisdiction. We have amazing world-class universities and teaching hospitals and platforms for the research to be done. We also have a very competitive business climate, and this is going to be our pitch for the HST. We've got a very competitive corporate tax jurisdiction. Governments have done a lot to reduce the regulatory burden to make starting businesses and working in Ontario as easy as possible, and we perform comparatively extremely well in terms of our business climate. Ontario also has some very unique and strong clusters. Ontario, or in Toronto, for example, the creative cluster is, I think it's the third largest creative cluster in North America. Our financial services sector is tremendously strong. In Kitchener and Waterloo, we have wireless and ICT anchored by companies like Mitel and RIM and OpenText. And in Ottawa is still very strong in software and aerospace and security applications. Access to capital is a bit of a tricky one. Given the global economic realities right now, access to capital, everyone's sort of hurting in. But the Ontario government has taken some strong leadership roles to help get the capital markets moving. So we established Ontario Venture Capital Fund to increase the availability of venture capital, and we created a $250 million Ontario Emerging Technologies Fund, which partners with angel investors and venture capital firms to take ownership stakes in companies to bring emerging technology companies to market. So that's what makes our innovation system unique. MRI was basically created in 2005 to support this ecosystem, or to support this this concept, and it's created by the Premier to lead. He was our first minister, and it was basically to transform our economy into one that really focuses on innovation, and one that is driving innovation. Innovation as a driver for economic growth across all sectors of our economy. So again, speaking towards the horizontal nature of it.